Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Benny, and today I want to talk about something that's really fundamental certainly in Western music, but also in various other traditions around the world, and that's the major scale. So this is like definitely kind of desert island scale, right? If you're only going to learn one scale, make it this one. And the nice thing about the piano is that it's actually organised around the C major scale, which is the white keys. So if we start on C and then go up using the white keys, we get our C major scale. And this is quite a unique-ish feature, I think, of the piano, like to have a certain scale that's kind of privileged. And it's quite a useful approach to learning lots of concepts, because you learn stuff in C major and then try and move them over to the other keys. Something like the guitar doesn't have that sort of advantage to it. Although there is open strings, so certain keys maybe are easier in some ways. So why the major scale? And why C major, right? So the answer to why C major is not a very satisfying one. And the answer is basically that the letter notes, so the sort of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they came way before Western music theory and music was written down. So it's a bit of a historical accident that we choose to call this C. We could just as well call this A and rename all the notes. So that's a sort of slightly arbitrary thing, but yeah, for whatever historical reason, and I don't think there's one simple reason, it's kind of a confluence of different factors that have led to this situation where we've based stuff around C major. But why a major scale at all? I think that is a bit more of a meaningful question. And the answer comes from something I discussed in a previous video, which I will link in the description. It's all about sort of the science of sound, vibrations, and the reason for the major scale is going to come from the overtone series, which is actually the harmonics that exist over a certain note. So in that video I covered that if we play something like C, for example, C has a fundamental frequency, which is the main frequency, which is vibrating. But there are also all these extra kind of vibrations that are happening above it, and these are called harmonics. And let's just use some technology to investigate those now. So yeah, all I'm going to do is play C. And I'll use the freeze button as well so we can freeze, so we can see what happens. So cool, so we have this sort of frequency spectrum for the single note C on the piano. And if you notice on Pro Q3 we've actually got a keyboard at the bottom here, so we can actually see which notes correspond to, or which frequencies correspond to which notes. So this down here is the main frequency in the note, which is called the fundamental. So if you look at the bottom here, this is sitting on C, which we'd expect because it's a C. And you can see that there are a load of harmonics, which again I discussed in this previous video. So let's look at what these harmonics are. We've got C. The next one up is double the frequency, so that's just the octave, that's just C again. And then the next one above that is actually G. And we discussed this before, that the fifth, so G is the fifth of C, the fifth is very sort of harmonically related in terms of the overtone series, in terms of its harmonics to the note. So the fifth and the root are these very related things, they're the most related notes. So in a sense it shouldn't come as a surprise that the next harmonic after the octave is actually the fifth. And then this next one, again, we've got C again, and this next one is the most interesting one for us. If you can see at the bottom of the screen there, we've actually got an E showing up as a harmonic. And that is the major third of C. So that's telling us that there's something quite natural about the major third, and actually it lives inside of the root itself. So this is kind of a reason. It's not the whole reason, because there is some sort of cultural and historical convention stuff going on as well. But this is one of the main reasons that the major scale, or certainly a major third or a major triad, putting the fifth in as well, our G, which shows up in this overtone series as well, this is like a pleasant sound. If we played E flat instead over this, D sharp, that's going to be the minor third, and that's going to sort of rub up against this E harmonic, which lives inside of the C note. So that's been a little bit technical, and don't worry if you didn't follow that exactly, but the thing to take away is that there is something in the physics going on here that makes major in particular, as opposed to minor or anything else, a pleasant, natural sound. Okay, so let's return to the piano. How do we play C major? I think it's easy enough, right? We start on C, and then we just go up the white keys until we reach C again. Now, let's just analyse that a little bit further. And I want to get up Notepad so you can see this. Now, my next question is, what's happening intervallically when we play this C major scale? So when I say intervallically, all I mean is, what are the intervals? How big are jumps are we doing when we do this? So we start on C. We jump a tone, so or a step, 2 half steps to D. So I'm going to use the word tone and step interchangeably. Semitone is the same thing as a half step. So we start on C, we go up a step, D, go up another step, E, now a half step, F, full step, G, full step, A, full step, B, and then a half step, C. So that feels like a load of random steps and half steps. How do we remember that? Well, one thing I think is useful is to split the scale up into 2 bits. So the scale has 7 notes if we don't include the C octave, so 7 unique notes. And the keyboard, again, helps us organise this, because we've got these kind of clusters on the keyboard, right? I think of it as like, there's these 3 white notes go with these 2 black notes, and then these 4 white notes go with these 3 black notes. So the C major scale is just these 3 white notes followed by these 3 white notes. So that's kind of how I think about it. So if we were to write that down, we start on C. The first 2 intervals are a tone, so I'm going to put tone, tone, and then we're on to the cluster of 4 notes. I'm going to put semitone, and then we got 3 tones, tone, 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 semitone. So this is the kind of intervallic structure of the major scale. And the reason to try and understand the intervallic structure is that we can move our major scale. So I'll give you an example. We could start on A flat instead, this note. And all we need to do is do tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And this is I know that probably feels like what on earth's going on, but this is a shape that starts to become quite ingrained. And I do think that thing of breaking it into like that block of 3 followed by that block of 4 is quite helpful. So if we start on A flat, we're going to do tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So that's the A flat major scale. And again, thinking about that in terms of the 3 and the 4, we've got these 3 notes, all of which are separated by a tone, followed by these 4 notes. which are all separated by a tone. So all we're doing when we play different major scales is moving this same shape across the keyboard. And of course there are 12 notes, so we have 12 different major scales. And it's actually a good party trick to know all of these, right? Because someone can put on any pop tune you like, and if you can play all 12 major scales, you can just figure out which major scale the pop tune's in, and then you can just noodle, you can just improvise over it. And this impresses people because it's like, wow, you can play anything. And I would say this is kind of a key, pun intended, key piece of learning for someone who wants to maybe, I wouldn't start with this as a beginner, but if you're trying to become more flexible, maybe you want to write your own music, maybe you're interested in jazz, or even just you want to understand the tunes you're playing. You might have a tune that starts in one key and then one major scale and then moves over to another major scale. And this will just help you sort of understand what's going on with music. I think it's quite an important sort of structural piece of learning. But there is something I haven't mentioned yet, which is actually going to help us organise this learning, or just this knowledge in general. Because at the moment, I've said there are 12 different major scales, which is true. But there's actually a tool that we can use to help us organise those major scales. And it's also going to make learning them easier, as well as being this is a useful compositional tool. And I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called the circle of fifths. So hopefully you can see on your screen, we have the circle of fifths. So for us, for today, we're going to ignore that inner ring, which has minor keys on, and just talk about the outer ring, which is your major keys. So what's going on here, right? What is this thing? Let me first tell you how it's constructed, and then I'm going to tell you why it's useful. So we start on C in the top, right? The top here, we've got C. And then if we want to go clockwise round the circle, we're going up a fifth. Now, the same video I linked in the description about harmonics fundamentals also has a section in it about how to identify fifths quickly. But what we're doing is we're starting on C, we're going up a fifth, and the way to do this quickly is to just skip 3 white notes and then play the next one. So G. So we start on C, we go up a fifth to G, up another fifth to D, up another fifth to A, up another fifth to E, and then up another fifth to B flat, and we'll stop there. Similarly, hopefully you maybe guessed this by now, if we start on C again, if we want to go anti-clockwise around the circle of fifths, we go down a fifth. So F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. And you're like, okay, whatever, cool, fifths. The reason for this circle of fifths, at least for our purposes today, it's not the only reason for it, is that it helps us organise the major scales. So how does that work? I showed you A flat major before, right, which goes like this. Now, that might just look like a load of sort of random black keys, white key. How do I remember which black keys and white keys are in this key? This is what the circle of fifths is going to do for us. So obviously we know that C major is all the white keys. Let's go one step clockwise around the circle of fifths, so to G. And now we're going to try and play the G major scale. So if I return to my little notes here, this is the pattern. So we're going to start on G. We're going to go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And again, I find, as I said before, I find the 3 and 4 thing quite useful. So we've got 3 notes here separated by a tone, and then a further 4 notes here also separated by a tone. Right. Now, what do we notice about G major as a key? Well, it's got what we say 1 sharp is what we'd say. So there's this F sharp in it. So this is the only black key that appears in this scale. So what do we need to do? Say we're trying to improvise in G major, right? You need to So how do you do that? Well, this scale is just all the white keys, except instead of playing F, I'm going to play F sharp. So when I'm improvising, in my head I'm thinking, never play F, play F sharp instead. So I have this situation where I know I can use all of the white keys, so it's still quite easy for me, except I just have to remember this one thing, which is play F sharp instead of F. Let's go another step round the circle of fifths from G. This is clockwise still, from G to D. Now if we play the D major scale, which you can construct it how you want, but if we go start on D, we can go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Or you can think about it as these 2 clusters of So what we've done by going another step round the circle of fifths is we've added a second sharp to our key. So D major has 2 sharps. It's still got the F sharp, but it's also got this C sharp. And one thing you might notice is that when we were in G, the sharp that we added when we went from C to G is actually the 7th in G. So that is the 7th note of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is F sharp. And then when we've gone another step round the circle of fifths to D, we've also added the 7th. And this is the pattern as we go around, okay? So we can go another step round, which takes us to A. So if I play A, we've added yet another sharp, which is G sharp, which is the 7th again. We can keep going. E. Added yet another sharp, which is D sharp. And we can go the other way as well. So if we start on C again and go down a fifth instead to F, we've actually, instead of adding a sharp here, we've added a flat. So F has this one flat, which is B flat. Then we can go down another step. Another step on the circle of fifths from F, and that takes us to B flat itself. And we've added another flat here, which is E flat. So I won't carry on any further with that, but hopefully you can see the pattern of what's happening. I'll try and state it clearly. When we go one step clockwise around the circle of fifths, we add 1 sharp, and that sharp is actually the 7th of the new key that we've gone into. If we go one step anti-clockwise around the circle of fifths, we add 1 flat, And I didn't say this at the time, but if you look at, for example, F major, the B flat, which is the flat we've added, is the 4th in the new key. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we add, and it's the same with, if we go to the next, so go down another 5th to B flat. The flat that we've added is the 4th in B flat, which is E flat. So what's the point of all this? The point is, you already know how to play in C major, right? It's just all the white keys. I could put a C major backing track on, and basically anyone could improvise, right, over that by just playing only the white keys. What you want to do is start sort of expanding your palette of keys, essentially, and the best way to do that is to start making your way both ways round the circle of fifths. So you're fine with C. So the next two you want to learn, excuse me, the next two you want to learn are F and G. And I recommend really taking your time on this. The way I did this was over about a year. There are 12 keys, right? 12 months in the year. I spent about a month per key. Just playing songs in that key, practicing the scale. So let's say G. Obviously you want to be able to play this scale all the way up the keyboard. Bit sloppy, but yeah, you get the idea. With both hands as well. You can start figuring out. I will do another video on what the chords are in these keys, but you can start messing around with chords in G. You can do other exercises, so maybe like so the idea is to just get super familiar with that key. So take your time, work both ways around the circle of fifths, not necessarily simultaneously, you can take it in turns, and eventually you'll find that you've covered all of the possible keys and in an organized way. And I'll show you in a later video about how to use key changes for kind of dramatic effect in your compositions. So that's been the video. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully that's been useful. Let me know if you prefer this type of educational content versus just me chatting. Please do like and subscribe, and see you in the next video. Thanks.